Welcome to Guiding Bolt Gaming. I'm Jessica, and today I want to talk about how to handle conversations your players have with NPCs. The process for resolving social interactions is very similar to the process for resolving any other action where the PC is trying to accomplish something. We'll come back to this general process in a few minutes, but before we do so, I want to first discuss two nuances that come into play specifically during social interactions. Those are objections and incentives. Remember, in our combat building video, how we discussed that encounters resolve around the notion of conflict when two opposing entities have contrasting goals? The same holds true in social situations. In the same way that the monsters themselves are not the conflict, NPCs aren't the conflict either. The conflict in social interactions instead arises from the objections and incentives. Objections are any reason an NPC has to not want to help the party. This can include hatred towards their party or patron, fear of getting in trouble, they think the party's up to no good, helping is costly, they're protecting someone or something, they fear danger, they have a vow, a promise, a sense of duty, or religious obligations, they might feel offended, or they dislike strangers, elves, or even authority. Anything could be an objection. Incentives are the opposite of objections. They are the reasons why the NPC does want to help the party. This can include the lure of fame or fortune, the need to prove something, a vow, oath, or sense of duty, having personal feelings towards the PCs, desiring to do the right thing, respect for the party or their patron, or even authority, wanting to have the PCs in their debt, or avoiding personal harm, guilt, or shame. Again, anything could be an incentive. It's important to understand an NPC's objections and incentives because these will have an effect on how the NPC interacts during the social interaction. If the NPC starts with only an incentive, then you don't really have a social encounter happening. The NPC already wants to help the player, so they will. It's as simple as that. No need to roll the dice. If, on the other hand, the NPC starts with an objection, then the PC will need to either overcome that objection or create an incentive that is stronger than the objection. If the NPC starts out conflicted with both an incentive and an objection, then the player will need to either overcome the objection, appeal to the incentive to overcome the objection, or even create a new incentive to again overcome that objection. And finally, if the NPC starts out neutral with neither, then the player will need to create an incentive to get the NPC to want to help them. Now that we understand objections and incentives, let's jump back into the general process for resolving social interactions. As the DM, you need to know two things from your players. The first item is a goal. You need to know what they are trying to accomplish. The second thing is a tactic. You need to know how they plan on achieving that goal. It's important to note that the how is not a skill. It's not enough for the PC to simply say, I persuade the goblin to join the party, or I intimidate the guard to let us in. When defining how, the PC must specify what they are saying and the manner in which they are saying it, because the approach they take to accomplish their goal makes a difference. Is what the PC said true or false? Is the PC being hostile or polite? Are they being insulting? Is it accidental or on purpose? Is the PC offering something or making a promise? Is there an implied promise? As a quick side note, I don't require my players to act out the scene verbatim if they don't feel comfortable with that. But I do need specifics beyond, I want to intimidate the guard. How are they intimidating him? Through personal bodily harm? Through fear by threatening to hurt his family? Through blackmail by saying they'll turn him in to the authorities because they have dirt on him? Do you see how these various ways of intimidating the guard could lead to different results? If the guard knows he's strong and that he's got a bunch of buddies within earshot, the threat to beat him up is probably going to make him laugh and possibly call for reinforcements. On the other hand, if he's threatened through blackmail and believes the party has dirt on him, the PCs may be more successful since the guard is afraid of being revealed and thrown in jail. If you as the DM are unclear on what the player wants to accomplish or how they're specifically trying to accomplish it, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. You can even let the NPC do the asking. Are you threatening to beat me up if I don't let you in this door? Once you know the PC's goal and their intended tactic for trying to reach that goal, you need to ask, can their tactic actually achieve that goal? Can this be successful? And this is where you take the NPC's objections and incentives into consideration. It's important because you want the players to make logical and rational decisions within the game. Otherwise, they'll resort to using their best numbers against every challenge. There needs to be a connection between actions and outcomes. You don't want a world in which any action can bring about any outcome. Don't allow them to succeed every time just by adding the word please to any requests they make because they have a high persuasion. Saying please simply isn't enough of an incentive and certainly doesn't overcome any objections the NPC may have. So, can the player succeed in this situation? If no, and you feel it's blatantly obvious it'll fail or cause harm to the PC, feel free to warn them. They may have a mistaken impression about the situation or the rules, and usually that is due to some misunderstanding or poor communication. Thus, you don't want to punish the player or cost them anything. It's okay to tell the player that their action can't lead to success if you feel it should be obvious. Of course, sometimes it won't be obvious until someone actually tries the action, in which case, treat the action as an automatic failure. We'll come back to what a failure means in a second. If the answer to our first question is yes, they can succeed because their tactic can overcome the NPC's objections, appeal to the NPC's incentive, or create a new incentive that the NPC values, then we move on to the next question. Can their tactic somehow not lead to their goal? Can this action fail? This question is important because it weeds out all the situations that lead to wasted game time or frustrated players. This is just like a situation where the NPC only has incentives. If the player's action can't fail or failure is extremely unlikely, then the action automatically succeeds. No need to waste time rolling the dice. If the action can fail, but the player can freely try again and again until they succeed because failure carries no risk or cost, then the action automatically succeeds as well. A good example of this is asking a random villager on the street for directions to the nearest tavern. Sure, the player may need to ask 2 or 3 people before they find someone who knows, but what's the point of having them do that? They're eventually going to get directions, and there's no real risk or cost associated with asking multiple people. Save everyone at the table the bore and frustration of having that character ask 3 different people for directions. Just have them automatically succeed and move on to more exciting gameplay. But if the answer to our question is the action can fail, and failure will change the situation because there's a risk or cost associated with it, then yes, it's time to roll the dice to determine success or failure. Let's take a full look at an example in which the player is talking with a guard. This scene comes from one of my campaign sessions a couple of months back when we were visiting Neverwinter. We were all attending a state dinner with the various faction leaders of the city when a murder occurred outside in the alley. One of the city guards was put on watch and ordered not to let any unauthorized people access the crime scene. His objection is that he does not want to get in trouble with his superiors. However, the guard knows that things are tense in the city amongst the different factions that are currently vying for power. He's scared the crime will go unsolved, hostilities will break out amongst the factions, and he'll end up on the front lines of battle. That's his incentive. Here are 3 possible ways the scene could play out. Number 1, the PCs show up and the guard goes, "Stop! Authorized people only." So the PC replies, "Quick, stand aside. I've been sent here directly by Captain Neverember himself." In this first example, whether the PC is telling the truth or not, the player is overcoming the guard's objections. He won't get into trouble because this person is authorized. In fact, he might get into trouble if he doesn't let the authorized person through. This interaction has a chance to succeed. Second scenario. Stop! Authorized people only. Please just let me in for a moment. I work for the Emerald Enclave and I think I can prove what happened to this poor woman. I want to prevent the blame game and an all-out faction war from happening. I promise I'll be in and out. In this example, the player is appealing to the guard's incentive. The PC is trying to convince the guard he can prevent a faction war from happening, which is what the guard wants to avoid. Now let's look at a third scenario. Stop! Authorized people only. Good man, please let me through. I'm a knight of terror, the god of justice. Something dreadful has happened here, and I must make sure the guilty party is apprehended so that justice might be rightly served to prevent them from killing again. This final scenario is all about creating a new incentive. As the DM, we would have to decide if this new incentive is one the guard would actually accept. Personally, I would believe that a guard still holding his duty during this tumultuous time in the city would have a sense of justice and value the greater good. I would rule that this approach could be successful. In each of these three scenarios, we have determined that yes, the specific approach has a chance at succeeding. We also know that there's a cost associated with failure. Therefore, we would roll the dice to determine success or failure. So now we either have success or failure in hand for the social action for the PC is making. This leads to the outcome, which is a direct result of the chosen tactic and whether it succeeded or not. If the action was a success, then whatever the goal the PC was working towards is accomplished, or they've made progress towards achieving it. The guard let them through the crime scene. If the action was a failure, then whatever goal the PC was working towards is not accomplished, and something has changed so that they either can't try again or must decide whether they should try again. The guard doesn't believe them, and then he eyes them warily and doesn't let them through the door. But there's still one more piece to the puzzle. The outcome is only half of the result. The other piece is the consequences. These can be positive, negative, or neutral and are a result of the specific chosen tactic and do not depend on the outcome of the action. Once you have the outcome, you need to consider the consequences of how the PC decided to achieve their goal. How does the player's decision to utilize their approach change the world? In our example, whether our PC succeeded or failed, that guard now thinks less of the PC because the PC tried to harass him. That guard will be less likely to cooperate with them in the future, and it's even possible that the guard will spread word about the PC and cause the PC to gain a reputation for strong-arming people. This can cause repercussions in the future, as others beyond the single guard will be less likely to trust or want to interact with the PC because of this. Finally, once the social interactions have been determined, you need to relay the results to the players. You can do this by simply repeating back what they were attempting and if they reached their goal or not. The guard quickly ushers you through the door with hopefulness. You threaten to blackmail a guard, but he doesn't believe you and doesn't let you in. He's not intimidated. It's also a good idea to reinforce consequences at this point. Don't force them, but try to work them in. You threaten a guard, but he won't let you in. He narrows his eyes and is clearly angry. Hopefully, he won't make trouble for you later. Now that we've walked through the whole process for resolving social interactions, let's do a quick summary. The player needs to define their goal and a specific tactic they are using to reach that goal. If the specific tactic cannot be used to reach the goal, then they automatically fail. If the specific tactic can't succeed because it overcomes an objection, appeals to an incentive, or creates a new incentive, then there's a chance for success. If there's no risk or cost associated with failure, then the player automatically succeeds. If there is a risk or cost associated with failure, now is when you roll to determine success or failure. Success or failure means the player did or did not reach their goal as the outcome. Finally, consider the consequences of the player's chosen approach. And that's how social interactions are resolved. The first few times you walk through this mental process during gameplay, it may be a little clunky, but with practice it'll come naturally and will improve the interactions your players have with NPCs. If you found this video, please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to ensure you catch the new content we put out every week. Until next time, enjoy your gaming sessions.